we were just talking about the plays that each of you have directed. All of you have chosen to direct these plays, and it's not as projects that you've taken on yourself. So I wanted to ask the basic question, which is what in each of the cases here drew to Sarah Kane, and the play in particular of hers that you chose to direct. We'll start with you, Vikki.
I got asked this at ESA, and my response was they offered me money to direct this play.
Oh.
So, but having said that, Matt proposed this play to me, so I didn't actually choose it in that respect. I chose to say yes to it, I think is the most important thing. I think in part because I really liked Blasted. It was really affected by that production. I wanted to use it as an opportunity to learn more about Sarah and her work and the time she was writing in. Also just having my own history of depression and wanting to just see what that would lend to working on a piece like this. I've never sort of explored something personally like that. And also just the huge challenge of the way this text is written and how it lies on the page, and then the choices you get to make as a director and with the company. I just thought it would be an enormous challenge, which I was kind of excited and terrified about.
So if we're going backwards chronologically through Sarah Kane's plays, immediately before 448 Psychosis was Crave, which you directed. And what brought you to that play?
I was also asked to do it and chose to say yes. And it's interesting. And when I encountered it, Kelly Thornton at Nightwood Theatre asked me to do it, so she chose it ultimately. I was totally unfamiliar with Sarah Kane at that time, and hadn't seen your production of Blasted. I also saw a production in New York, and I hadn't seen 448, and there was a production here. Yeah, Rick Roberts directed it, and I hadn't seen that, hadn't seen anything, hadn't read any Kane, and my mother had recently passed away, and I read it, and the element of absence, which the text even more struck me tonight about all of the references to just absence, just really struck me, and I took it on as an exercise and a further exploration of grief, and I wanted it to be very, very beautiful because I had seen not your production but 448 and went, oh my God, that is just so hard, and I wanted to create something beautiful from something that had its hard core. And I just remember taking on the idea of the space and trying to create a space that was absent. And the idea of crave for me is the most profound form of grief, because grief is a craving that is so overwhelming. We almost cease to function with it. And so the space took on an idea, took on a context of 4 different people really acting as one and having no access to each other, even though they inhabited almost the same space. So I was very fascinated by a kind of spatial installation surrounding the piece that to me related to acute craving. But it's just so fascinating going back over these plays because Crave seems to me the most absent. I mean, Blasted is like everything is thrown in your face, and not so much with 448 in terms of just the gore, the graphicness, but the pain is so acutely present. And in Crave, it's absent.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons, that was my fascination with it.
So Brendan, you are the artistic director of Buddies. So I imagine you did select.
Self-elected myself to do that. I guess what drew me to the play was, well,
And maybe just for those people who don't know it,
Right.
if you could just summarize the play in a line, because it's really simple.
Yeah. The play basically tells the story of this man, this woman, older man and younger woman who find themselves in a hotel room. Oh God, how to be simple about it. And they sort of know each other. There's an implied past, perhaps, sexual relationship. It's unclear, but the man ends up raping the woman. And there's a bit of an aftermath of that's depicted. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a soldier enters the room. And the woman escapes. And then there's a huge explosion that kind of blows up the hotel room. And then it's the man and this soldier are sort of left to kind of deal with each other. And the soldier has committed horrible crimes of war, and he ends up sucking the eyeballs out of the guy, the soldier does, of the rapist, and rapes him and shoots himself. And then the younger girl kind of finds her way back to the hotel room and kind of helps him die.
So you read this play and you thought, I've got this.
I thought a few things when I read it. I thought that there was such truth to it, and it's a hard play to describe because when describing it feels very trite and sensationalistic. But I felt that the writing, the psychology of the characters, the dynamic of the characters felt so true to me, felt really real, really, really real. And I think that initially drew me to it. Another thing that drew me drew me to the play and to her voice as a writer inside that play was a kind of like revulsion, like a disgust at violence in the world and a kind of refusal to accept that people treat each other badly. And I thought, and a kind of uncompromised, like no excuse, this is disgusting to me. And that really impressed me. I perceived a kind of moral position inside the play that I found incredible and very inspirational.
It's not Quentin Tarantino violence at all.
No.
It is that very, it's such a visceral.
It's visceral.
You feel that disgust.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A real disgust. And then I think, I didn't know that at the time, but I think I sensed a kind of writer who was writing to survive in a way. That the play was infused with a kind of necessity that could only come out of someone who was really in process of really dealing with some real problems and some real struggles in life. And I think the writing had a kind of vitality.
I felt that too.
An electric vitality, and I love that about it.
Function to it.
Yeah.
Profound function to it.
Yeah.
They're very different plays between Blasted and her later works. For those of you who don't know, Blasted was her very first play. She was 25 years old when it premiered at the Royal Court in London. And it became this, because of the way it sounded when you describe it, it became quite a scandal in the tabloids in the UK about this play going on that had this violence. And was discussed in tabloids for a long time and got terribly reviewed at first until Harold Pinter, I believe, was one of the first people to come along and write about what was really going on in that play. For those of you who haven't seen 448 Psychosis on the page, it doesn't look like Blasted looks like a normal play. It has a normal play. It has characters in the margin and stage directions. Whereas 448 Psychosis has none of those things. It has a very few stage directions.
Silence and long silence.
Silence and long silence. There you go. So I wanted to talk about these two different modes of writing in Sarah Kane. With you first, the later plays like Crave, and particularly 448 Psychosis. How do you as a director approach a text that gives you so few clues as to what's going on in it and how to stage it?
Well, it's remarkable how many clues are in there. I think that's the thing that was surprising. I mean, when I first read it, I was, as I said before, rather terrified. And then I just kept reading it, and thinking about it, and knew that I wasn't going to pull this off alone. So the actors and I met a few weeks, or the month before we were going to rehearse, just so we could spend some time around the table trying to figure out what the voices were in the text, trying to find the clues, basically, and going through line by line. I had a sense early on that there was 3 characters, and that's about as far as I got. I was quite sure that I only needed to do with 3 actors. But in terms of assigning who was going to say what, that was something that we had to all collaboratively do together by quite literally going through the whole play. We read the whole play without assigning anything to anybody, just line after line. And then we just tried to talk about how many different voices were in the play. A patient, a friend, a lover, a Bible Belt, therapists, people from the medical community, just anything that we could find that we thought that the actual playwright's voice, like the sort of meta-theatrical